Welcome back to Black News Tonight. Few people have been more talented or mysterious than the one they called the Mozart of Minneapolis. I'm talking about the purple one, the unpronounceable love symbol, the legend that you and I adored as Prince. But who was the real Prince, the musician and the man? Well, there's a new book out. It's called Nothing Compares to You, an oral history of Prince, and it dares to answer those questions. Now, it's based on years of interviews with people who were in the inner circle of the artist. And now I have the book's author with us. This is a special treat. He is the book's award-winning author, the always amazing, except for when he's talking about basketball, Touré. My brother, welcome back to Black News Tonight.
I caught that shot. It's all good. I'll get you in the playoffs, Kyle.
Oh, man. Hopefully I get to see you on the playoffs. Look, when you say your book is based on interviews, a lot of times when people are thinking about biographies, I think about the stuff David Ritz does. I think about some of the great music biographers. You're doing something a little bit different here. You're not doing it as a historian digging purely in the archives. You're not sitting down for 1,000 hours, obviously, with the artist because he's passed away tragically. You're getting the inner circle as the basis of the book. What does that mean?
I've been talking to Prince and his inner circle for about 15 years and just exploring different ideas with them, talking to them. Sometimes folks have given me formal interviews for my other book or for this book or for the podcast I've done about him. I just did an 8-hour podcast called Who Was Prince, where I got a lot of interviews, but some of the interviews for this book are specific to this book. But for 15 years, I've been talking to all sorts of Prince people, sometimes on the record, sometimes off the record. So this is the culmination of 15 years of talking to folks who were close to him and trying to understand who he really was as a musician, as a son, as a lover, as a almost husband, as a boss, and just trying to understand the scope of his life. And one of the things that I had wondered that I finally found out in this, because, when you are doing research, you have these questions, you're sort of dying to get the answers. Prince leaves his mother's house when he's about 11 years old because he doesn't really like her anymore, and he hates his stepfather, the man that she remarried after his father and her broke up. So then he goes to his father's house, and he lives with Big John Nelson for about 6 months. And I had always wondered, why did he leave John Nelson's house? And nobody could really give me a clear answer on why that happened. Did he want to leave, or did John kick him out? And nobody knew. And finally, I talked to Morris Day, who I've been wanting to talk to for years. And Morris was there. They have been friends since Prince was like 12 years old. And he was there the day he got kicked out of John Nelson's house. And he says that Morris and Prince, even at age 12, were chasing girls and getting girls to come back to his house and playing the game of saying, oh, we're going to your house. And they'd go to Big John's house and they'd be with the girls. And John told them, don't be bringing no girls back to my house. And they did. And John caught him and he called him Prince Skipper. And he said, Skipper, put your key on the table. Get out. And Morris was like, I was there. And John kicked Prince out of his house, which led him to be semi-homeless for a few months until he ends up in somebody else's house where he lives until he's an older teenager and he's able to take care of himself. But this creates a sense of feeling abandoned by both his parents, and he blames both his parents for letting him leave. So it launches him into his teenage years with a sense of wanting revenge on his parents and this notion of, I'm going to become a rock star to show my mother that she was wrong to let me go, that she abandoned me and I was a worthwhile, valuable person, and also to get my father's attention and respect. Because his father was working at Honeywell, but he was playing in the clubs at night. They say his music was avant-garde and abstract, kind of like Thelonious Monk and Sun Ra. And he wanted his father's attention and love and respect, and becoming a rock star would get him that. And so that's what he's chasing throughout his teenage years and his early 20s. When he starts to become a rock star, he welcomes his father back into his life, and they become bosom buddies, and they're sort of traveling the world together for a while. He never really forgives his mother, and he never really welcomes her back into his life. And everybody around him says that she was always a sore subject not to be brought up. But he bought her a house. You know, he invited her to his wedding. He invited her to the premiere of Purple Rain. He did those things you're supposed to do. But he never forgives her, and he never really got over the pain that she caused him, or that he felt she caused him.
Wow. So we understand that part of his commitment to being a rock star was fueled by that. That's a piece of Prince's life that we didn't know. There's another piece that you explore in the book, which is his musicianship. You help us think about sort of different areas of who he was as an artist, what his artistic vision was, what his goals were, who his influences were, that are a lot more robust than I think a lot of us understood.
I think a lot of us look to Jimi Hendrix as one of his key influences, and Jimmy definitely was. But I think when you look to James Brown, you see much more of an influence. And when you look at Little Richard, this man is clearly the son of Little Richard. I mean, I think age-wise, a little longer than that. But like, if you put Little Richard and Prince side by side, he is very much deeply inspired by Little Richard. But he's also deeply inspired by Joni Mitchell and her approach to lyricism. And I also discovered that one of the brothers from the NPG asked Prince, "What do you think is your best talent? Because you do everything musically." And he said writing lyrics was his best talent in his mind. But this is a man who had music pouring out of him day and night, and he felt like it was almost like a gift and a curse. Like, just songs are appearing to him every day. He cannot turn off the faucet, and this is why there's so many albums of his, and so much music he's giving to other people, and so much music that's in the vault. But quite often, when we get an album from Prince back in the 80s, the next album was already done. When Purple Rain comes out, Around the World in a Day is already done. When the Revolution broke up, there were still years of Revolution music coming out after that, because those albums were already done. So, I mean, like, just prolific beyond
Let me ask you a question about that. Prince was very prolific, and he had a string of extraordinary classic albums that, honestly, the only person I can think of who could rival that is probably Kanye West, over a block of time. But Prince didn't come out of the gate swinging. That first album wasn't exactly what we would have thought. Similar to Michael Jackson's first solo album. We like to pretend it was off the wall, but it wasn't, right? What happened there? Did Prince just misjudge the public? How does he make sense of that first project?
I think that he has to learn how to harness his talents, learn how to create songs that everyone will like. He's developing as an artist as we go along. And you see, as time goes along, he changes from album to album. But from the beginning, he was making this music all by himself. The first album, the second album, third album, all these albums, he goes away and he makes them all by himself. Now, the breakthrough happens with Purple Rain, and Bobby Z, his longtime friend and drummer, really helps me understand why Purple Rain was such a breakthrough moment for him. Because with Purple Rain, it's tied to a movie, so he's forced to slow down. Before that, he's making albums very quickly, and he's able to create very quickly. But with Purple Rain, he has to slow down in terms of the making of the songs, in terms of the picking of the songs, in terms of the conception of the album. And that allows him to sort of say, okay, what am I going to do here? And that is why we have this operatic, maximalist, sort of rock opera statement of Purple Rain. The other albums are done much more quickly because that's who he really was. But I mean, even we talk a lot about Dirty Mind. He was like, what am I going to do to get everyone's attention? I get it. I'll do, punk and new wave. I'll take off my clothes. I'll wear women's clothes. I'll shock everyone. And the label was like, we want no parts of this. This is not what we signed up for. We are not interested in this. And he's like, well, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am right now. And of course, It was a huge success.
Exactly, which is how record labels move, right? It's like Berry Gordy did that when Marvin made What's Going On. He was like, "Don't you smack them for making it?" And then after it was successful, he said, "Give me 10 more of them." Hey, but before you go, and I got less than a minute. But is it true? There's a rumor going around about you that you played basketball with Prince.
It's not a rumor, it's true. We played 1-on-1 and we played 2-on-2. We were partners in 2-on-2. He was an excellent basketball player. He had the moves, he had the handles. He looked like a ball player on the court. He had a great looking jumper. We played at Paisley Park, and I'm sure he wasn't playing all the time at that point. This is like the late 90s. So, or the early double O's. So his jumper was a little off, but like the form looked really good. He looked like if you could imagine like a Steph Curry, like that's what he looked like as a player in terms of the way that he moved, very silky, classic,
So that means
traditional looking jumper in terms of the form. He was a great player. He played in high school. He loved basketball.
that's what I'm talking about, man. That means I gotta tell Dave Chappelle, man, like, yo, you weren't lying, because a lot of us thought he was exaggerating. You know what I mean? I don't know if he actually said game blouses after y'all won, but at the very least, we know that the story is real. Touré, I got to run. We're against the end of the show, but thank you so much for joining me tonight. And everybody, make sure you check out the book, Nothing Compares to You. Everybody, thank you for watching Black News Tonight. Wishing you a night of peace, love, and justice.